Breaking news, a major security breach has rocked the White House after it was confirmed that a U.S. journalist was inadvertently added to a private group chat that contained classified discussions about military strikes in Yemen. This unprecedented leak exposed the communications of some of the highest-ranking members of America's national security apparatus, including Vice President J.D. Vance. The journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, who serves as the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, reportedly gained access to these sensitive exchanges just 2 hours before the planned strikes took place. This revelation has sent shockwaves through Washington, as it raises serious questions about the security protocols surrounding classified military operations and communications at the highest levels of government. The situation is particularly astonishing because the group chat in question was hosted on Signal, a messaging app widely known for its end-to-end encryption, but not typically used for sensitive national security discussions. The fact that a journalist was mistakenly added to such a high-level group chat highlights a glaring vulnerability in the way crucial military strategies are discussed and disseminated. According to reports, the conversation in the chat group initially revolved around potential bombing operations aimed at protecting shipping lanes in the Suez Canal. Vice President J.D. Vance reportedly expressed skepticism about the need for American involvement, noting that significantly fewer U.S. ships use the canal compared to European vessels. His messages reflect a hesitancy to engage in military action for the benefit of European allies, a sentiment that appears to have been shared by some other members of the chat. In one message, he is quoted as saying, "If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again." In response, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegg, reportedly concurred with Vance's frustration over what he referred to as European freeloading. He went so far as to call it pathetic, adding to the growing sense that internal disagreements about U.S. involvement in the region were playing out in real time within the chat. Despite these reservations, the decision to proceed with the strike was ultimately made. The very next day, members of the group chat were informed that the bombing raid had been successfully executed. As celebratory messages began pouring in within the chat, notable responses included one from CIA Director John Ratcliffe, who characterized the operation as a good start. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz reportedly reacted using only emojis, a strikingly casual response given the gravity of the military action just carried out. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, assumed to be referred to in the chat as M, was also present in the conversation. He praised the defense secretary and his team, simply stating, "Good job, Pete." White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles also chimed in, as did another high-ranking official, Steve Wickoff, whose messages included additional emojis. The extremely informal and almost cavalier way in which these high-ranking officials discussed a significant military strike is raising serious concerns about the culture within the current administration. Critics argue that such critical national security matters should be handled with the utmost seriousness and discretion, not through casual exchanges on a messaging app where errors like mistakenly adding a journalist could occur. Furthermore, the consequences of this breach extend beyond mere embarrassment. The Houthi rebels, who were the target of the bombing campaign, claimed that the attack resulted in 53 casualties. The White House has not confirmed the accuracy of that number, but the aftermath of the operation has intensified scrutiny on the U.S. involvement in the region and the administration's approach to military engagement. When questioned about the security breach, President Donald Trump appeared to be caught off guard, claiming he had no prior knowledge of the situation. His response to reporters was notably dismissive as he attempted to downplay the significance of the revelations. "What were they talking about with the Houthis? You mean the attack? Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time," Trump stated. Despite the president's attempt to distance himself from the scandal, the White House has since confirmed that the leaked messages are indeed authentic. The confirmation means that Jeffrey Goldberg, a journalist, was indeed unintentionally granted access to classified military deliberations. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre addressed the situation in a briefing, reiterating that the strike on Houthi targets had been deemed successful and that the president maintained full confidence in his national security team. However, her assurances did little to quell concerns over the lack of stringent security measures in place to prevent such a breach from occurring in the first place. Experts in national security and intelligence are now calling for a comprehensive review of how classified information is communicated among top government officials. There is growing bipartisan concern that if such an egregious mistake could occur in this instance, there may be other vulnerabilities that adversaries could exploit. The use of commercial messaging apps for high-stakes military planning is now under intense scrutiny, with many calling for a return to more secure, controlled communication channels. Furthermore, the incident is sparking discussions about broader operational security OPSEC issues within the U.S. government. The idea that such a critical lapse could occur at the highest level of American leadership raises alarms not just domestically, but internationally as well. Allies and adversaries alike will be analyzing this event for any potential weaknesses it exposes in the U.S. decision-making process. Intelligence analysts suggest that this breach could have diplomatic ramifications, particularly if foreign governments interpret the incident as indicative of lax security measures within the current administration. In the wake of this incident, multiple congressional lawmakers have already signaled their intent to launch investigations into how such a glaring mistake was allowed to happen. There is bipartisan agreement that such a security lapse is unacceptable, and that immediate steps must be taken to ensure similar incidents do not occur in the future. Republican and Democratic lawmakers alike have expressed outrage, with some suggesting that firings within the administration may be necessary to restore credibility and accountability. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Goldberg himself has remained relatively tight-lipped about the matter, declining to disclose whether he will publish a more detailed account of what transpired in the chat group. His involvement in this extraordinary security breach, albeit accidental, has placed him at the center of a major political controversy that is unlikely to fade from the headlines anytime soon. As the story continues to unfold, the White House is working to contain the fallout. Damage control efforts are in full swing, with top officials attempting to reassure the public and U.S. allies that national security remains a top priority. However, the fact remains that a journalist was inadvertently granted access to classified military discussions, a mistake that could have had far-reaching consequences. This is an ongoing situation, and more details are expected to emerge as investigations proceed. The implications of this breach will likely be felt for months to come, both in Washington and beyond. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more breaking news updates as they happen.